Hello YouTube. So I was just watching Piro's video entitled Hating on Philosophy. I wanted to sort of do loosely do a response to it. It's not a really direct response to anything that he said, but it got me thinking. And I want to start with the following quotation. In Foucault's debate with, or Michel Foucault's debate with Noam Chomsky, which is amazing. It's amazing that it happened. You can find the full text of it online, and I'm looking at it right now. The moderator asks Foucault at one point. He says, well, let's move over now to the second part of the discussion, to politics. First of all, I would like to ask Mr. Foucault why he is so interested in politics, because he told me that in fact he likes politics much more than philosophy. Foucault responds, I've never concerned myself, in any case, with philosophy, but that's not a problem. Your question is, why am I so interested in politics? But if I were to answer you very simply, I would say this. Why shouldn't I be interested? That is to say, what blindness, what deafness, what density of ideology would have to weigh me down to prevent me from being interested in what is probably the most crucial subject to our existence. That is to say, the society in which we live, the economic relations within which it functions, the systems of power which defines the regular forms and the regular permissions and prohibitions of our conduct. The essence of our life consists, after all, of the political functioning of the society in which we find ourselves. So I can't answer the question of why I should be interested. I could only answer it by saying, why shouldn't I be interested, right? This is a quotation about politics. And there's an irony in the beginning there, right? Where he says, I'm not interested in philosophy. The irony, of course, being Foucault is one of the most seminal philosophers of the 20th century. And when he's talking about politics there, he's talking about the philosophy of politics. He's not talking about, being a politician or something. The philosophical side of politics. So in a certain way, I could say that that this is, the question, why are you interested in philosophy, for me is somewhat similar, right? Why wouldn't I be interested in 3,000 years of human thought, in some of the most advanced thought that's ever been produced, from some of the smartest people who have ever thought before? How could you not be interested in that? Even if there are philosophers who give really strange answers, right? So like Aristotle's physics, and all sorts of, the philosophy, what's called the philosophy of nature. Even that stuff is fascinating. And not just for historical reference. Even the most out there, crazy, cracked people can have really fascinating ideas that make you think. Even if those ideas are completely false, right? They can still be interesting and still make you think. I think that we have a strange tendency to fetishize the truth, in quotes, in philosophy. That is to say, and when I say fetishize the truth, I mean, obviously, truth is a good thing. But what I mean is that it seems to me that there's no problem with having multiple mutually exclusive frameworks to approach a situation from, right? So when I say fetishizing the truth, I mean fetishizing the idea that there is one way to look at a problem, or one solution to a problem, or something like that. This seems to me to be the essence of all dogmatism. The assumption that we live in a world that is definable, that there is such a thing as a total solution, right, to all of the problems that harmonize with one another and aren't contradictory. That assumption is, to me, deeply problematic. I think that a lot of philosophy has overcome that assumption. Not all of it, but I think a lot of it has. I think that there's always something valuable in encountering. So Piro says in his video, like probably 50% of the philosophy, if not more, out there is crap. Well, it's probably crap. Yeah, I think reading Derrida or Deleuze or someone like that is probably going to be total crap if you assume that you're going to get some kind of positive information or set of facts out of reading it, in the same way that you would out of reading a science book. I don't think that that's the right attitude, right? I don't think that's the right metric to assess the value of philosophy. I think that a better way of thinking of it is to say that here I am, I would love to see a really heavily science-minded individual read Derrida. Because I think that you have to go into that situation with, here's a person who thinks about the world completely fucking differently than I am. And it's my mission as the reader, rather than to get any notion of the factual out of it, rather than get any positive statements or claims that are verifiable or something, but rather it is my mission as the reader to understand what's being said and to take what's being said seriously and to think about what's being said, think about it on its own terms, and to inhabit, not just to think about it, but to actually inhabit what's being said. Not that I might have the same ideas, but simply because it's a good thing to encounter a mind that is radically different than mine. Right? It expands my view of the world. It affords me more ways to think through problems and more ways, new ways to think through problems, new ways to think through old problems. Right? It seems to me that the people who are going to be the ones to do that are going to be the people that I am assuming are crap, right? The people who I think are good philosophers are, I'm probably not going to get that much out of them, in a certain way, in the sense that I probably already agree with a lot of what they're saying, or agree with the premises of what they're saying. I think that the critics of that, and the radical critics of that, are the people who we should be looking at and really trying to engage with, not just to debate or to debunk, but to really understand. And the other thing too is that this is a side note, and it's something I've encountered recently, and it's something I've been thinking about. I think that there's a politics of rhetoric. And I think Avita Ronell is her name. She's a NYU professor, and she has some really kooky books. She has a book called Stupidity, which is a philosophical analysis of the history of stupidity and all of this. She has this great line where she says, "To make things perfectly clear is reactionary and stupefying. The real is not perfectly clear," right? And so I think that a lot of people encounter really hard texts and say, I can't sort out what the proposition is, and to argue against it or something like that, or to affirm it. I don't think that that's the point. I don't think that the point is always going to be to make a proposition and defend it. And I think that that's something that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, particularly in the past 100 years of philosophy, that it's not necessarily about saying, here's my thesis. It's more about weaving through things and noticing things and playing with ideas, again, as I've said before. And I don't think that people go into it with the right mindset. Put it that way. I think that this is where all of the hate for philosophy is coming from, is that people want philosophy to be science. People want philosophy to give them an answer. But I think the questions that are raised, not just the big questions, all sorts of questions that are raised, are infinitely more important and interesting. And the questions that are raised when we read something, the questions that we raise when we interact with a text. I think that this is all really what philosophy is about. So yeah, there seems to be just a misapprehension. I think that we live in a world that values a certain notion of fact, let's say. I said truth earlier in the video. I'd rather say fact, of positive, statement that can be verified and all of this. I don't know. I'm really, in some way, I think I'm really uncomfortable with that being the sole determinant of what's good and bad. And I'm not saying that Pyrrho necessarily does that, but I'd like to know if he does. Put it that way. So thank you, and have a good day.